Sulphur. For most of my working life we haven't had to worry about providing sulphur fertilisation to crops. Why? Because we had 60 to 70 kilos per hectare of sulphur deposited on our soils from atmospheric deposition. When the Clean Air Act was introduced in the early 1990s, we very rapidly went from 60 kilos a hectare of atmospheric deposition to 5. And so the sulphur that used to go up through the factory chimneys and come down again, the same sulphur that caused the acid rain in Scandinavia and Northern Europe, suddenly was being turned into ammonium sulphate by scrubbers in the factory chimneys. So now we have to put the ammonium sulphate back on the soil to provide the crop with sufficient sulphur. Sulphate, being an anion, is very leachable. So when we apply ammonium sulphate to crops, if we want it to be available to them, it needs to be when they're growing, because the danger is it will flush through the soil without being picked up by the crop if the crop's in a dormant condition. There is no quick way of correcting sulphur deficiency with anything that's soil applied. We have a good appreciation of what it does take to correct sulphur deficiency. Ammonium thiosulfate. Thiosulfate is a form of sulphur which is much more biologically available than sulphate sulphur. Thiosulfates can be incorporated into amino acids and other plant systems very, very readily and very quickly, whereas sulphate sulphur is a lot slower. The example I would give of that is if you have an oilseed rape crop that starts flowering with pale yellow flowers, which is a good early indication of sulphur deficiency, if you apply ammonium sulphate to the soil, it'll be 3 weeks before you see any dark yellow flowers. If you dissolve that ammonium sulphate in the sprayer tank and apply it, then it will still be 10 to 12 days before you will see dark, nice mustard yellow flowers on the oilseed rape. If you apply ammonium thiosulfate to the leaves, then you will see dark yellow flowers within the week, and in some cases even 2-3 days later. As Micromix, because our multi-N foliar nitrogen is comprised of urea thiosulfate, we deliver an awful lot of sulphur that way. And if you're going to go down the route of using multi-N to supplement your soil applied nitrogen, then you're going to worry a lot less about sulphur deficiency in those crops. If we do get sulphur deficiency, a sulfidine, which is a formulated ammonium thiosulfate, works really well, really quickly. And we also have a material called sulphur stim, which contains some biostimulants in addition to the ammonium thiosulfate. And it's interesting that in the crops where we use sulphur stim, we do see lower disease levels of certain diseases. We can't claim it's fungicide, obviously, because it definitely isn't. But maybe it's a plant strengthening effect, or it's being synergistic with fungicides already applied. But definitely lower mildew levels and other beneficial effects in some crops.